everybody. Welcome back to ArdaCraft, joined by Fornad. Hey, buddy.
Hello. How are you doing?
Good, good, good. So this is the second tour that we are doing today, and of possibly quite a few. We're going to see some new areas and maybe some refurbished areas of this great world, which, by the way, I should have plugged in the beginning. If you want to know how to get on this world, you can walk around yourself. It's ardacraft.me. It'll be in the description that no one reads, or you can just type in ArdaCraft.me, and there's a launcher, and you just click on the launcher, and then boom, you're here. It's super cool. Fortnite, where are we today?
So today we are in Edoras, or at the moment just standing outside the walls of Edoras. Now, Edoras was made famous both in the books and in the films of Lord of the Rings as the capital of the Kingdom of Rohan, the location of Medusel, the King's Hall of Rohan, and kind of the political center of the whole kingdom. So a very important location, one which we have worked very hard to kind of bring to life in the game, and hopefully you appreciate the tour today.
Yeah, I can't wait to see. I was blown away by the last one. You said, I was like, oh, well, the next one's much bigger. I was like, oh, okay, all right. My brain may explode. So let's go check it out.
Absolutely, yeah. So just walking up the road towards the northern gate here, you'll see on either side of us there are these mounds covered with these white flowers, and these are the mounds of the kings of Rohan, going all the way back to Eowyn the Young, about 500 years ago. So. Each of these kings, to be honest, I don't know them all off my head. Yeah, I know, it's disgraceful, isn't it? But yeah, so I think the Eowyn the Young is up here on the top right. So that's the first line. That goes all the way down to Hammerhand at the bottom there. And then when he died, he had no son. So they started a new line. I think it was his nephew or his cousin or something up at the top left, and they went all the way down. So yeah, this is where all the kings are buried. It's kind of a sort of hallowed ground, I think, for the people here.
Wow, right on the walk up to the city, huh? Well, that's cool. That was in the books, I assume?
That was in the books, yeah, and actually you do see it in the films as well. There's a short scene where you see the mounds outside the city.
Man, that's amazing. You know, it's a funny thing to think of. You know, is you're just writing a book about basically, a hobbit who's taking a ring to Mount Doom, and somehow you find the time to include that. Like, that's such a I don't want to say random, but that's such a just like outside of the main sort of point or storyline thing. It's just fantastic.
I mean, Tolkien famously, when he wrote Lord of the Rings, he was just asked to write a sequel to The Hobbit, right? Like this quite short children's book about quite short children's book about a hobbit who has a little adventure, and he was asked to write a sequel to it, and he started off writing a little sequel about hobbits, but then it just turned into this enormous. So. And he started including all this other stuff that he'd been working on for years, and it just turned into this massive adventure. Yeah, hang on. So we'll walk in again. Got this little animation on the gate here, which is nice.
That's fancy.
And yeah, here we are in the entrance to the city. So again, you'll see very similar architecture to that you saw in Elfberg. Same people, same exact culture. Just on a bigger scale.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, this is great. Like, really inventive building. And if you're here from my channel, then you know this. But if you're just stopping by because you see the ArdaCraft thing flash up on your screen, then I view things primarily as a survival Minecraft player. So like, I'm always looking for like things I can add to my survival world, and this is really cool. Just like. That little stream. I know we've talked about this in past videos about how blown away I am that all of your rivers actually flow from high to low, which is just mind blowing.
Yeah, I mean, not only that, but eventually, if you follow any stream on the map, you'll eventually find the sea. Right, you'll join a larger river, and you'll get to the sea. So that's a whole level of pre-planning before you even put down a block that I can't even contemplate. But that's a really nice thing to add to a world and stuff. Oh, I like that. Crop fields and right in town, that little tent. I'm just looking at the easy building things before we get to the major stuff. But super cool, super cool details. It's really nice, and it's again, there's quite an agricultural feel. This is the capital city, but it's still very rural in its feeling. When you fly around, it's like like one of the villages that you would find in Rohan, which is much larger, which is nice, I think.
You know, I'm just curious, before you even start the city, like before you even, you know, when you have, say, the terrain is about done and whatever, and you're just getting ready to start, do you put down like a block where every house is going to be, or do you plan out the roads, and then how pre-planned is it, or does it sort of morph as you build it?
It's very pre-planned, yeah, very prescribed. So you'll have a project leader who will apply, you know, on our forums. He'll create a full plan, kind of like an image of exactly what he or she wants, and then we'll approve it, and then it will be planned out in game, and people will kind of determine what they want out of the build. You know, all the professions will be planned out. Everything will be kind of worked out beforehand. It's only like the final stage is actually putting the house up, right? You know, before everything's been worked out, you know, what profession is this going to be? How many houses are there going to be? How many beds are there going to be in each house?
Oh, wow. That level.
You know,
holy cow.
all that stuff is going to be worked out beforehand, and then, you know, the final stage is actually putting the build together. This is quite cool. This is a house that's being it's being rethatched. Yeah, it's being rethatched, which is cool. So you can see half of it hasn't got straw on it.
Oh, that's super cool.
So yeah, they're redoing the because you know, every I think 20 or 30 years or so you have to redo the thatch on a roof, or else it'll rot.
Yeah, brilliant, really brilliant.
It's all those kinds of details that we like to add into the build and make it feel, you know, realistic. And any interior you go into, it'll be done. It'll be it'll have purpose to it. There'll be a point to everything that you find here. So I think this, for example, is a wheelwright. So they'll make carts and wheels and stuff here.
Nice.
So all that kind of stuff is all detailed out. This is a little bakehouse. So you'd have these in lots of different places. So a very small house dedicated just to making bread. So rather than like a professional baker, you know, like we would have in modern times, it's more like each family would, or each group of families would have a little bakehouse where they would come and make their bread.
Okay. That's really cool. Man. There's a lot of houses here. Jeez, holy cow.
Yeah, it goes on forever. And there's also outskirts of the city as well, right? So there's all sorts of interesting stuff even outside of it.
There's so much life in your build. You know, like you know, we were talking about last episode. We were talking about how the roads just look like every single block is really purposefully put down and planned, not just necessarily on the roads, but off to the side roads. And these banks, again, you know, they add so much. And I think by having a bank here that obscures your view of over there, it forces your view to down here where you're seeing some of this interesting stuff that otherwise, if you're looking all over the place, you might miss. You know, it's a really well thought out, well built, artistic step. Very, very nice.
Yeah, and there's definitely, you know, an inherent value, I think, to not only fly over a build to get it, the whole scope of it, but also, you know, to get down on the ground and actually see things from that ground perspective, you know.
For sure. I used to fly a lot in tours, and I very rarely do now because for one thing, I think it makes the entire thing look a lot smaller. I mean, both literally and figuratively. I think where if you're boots on the ground, you really feel the scale, because Minecraft is such a great thing. How you know, there's 2 blocks to a person, all that kind of, it's set so perfectly that whenever you walk in this room, you feel the height of it. Where if you were to just fly by it, you wouldn't at all. It would just seem like a bottle.
Yeah, you would notice it now. These are a set of stables.
Nice.
See, Rohan being very horse-based in its culture, you would have stables in all over the place, really. So yeah, as soon as they ride into the city, they can, you know, tie up their horse here and go in.
Rohan is like that. Okay. Like, I know this, of course, so I'm just talking about the people who maybe don't know this, but Rohan's like, it's a country, right?
Yeah, it's a whole kingdom, yeah. So we are building this entire kingdom of Rohan, which, as I think I might have mentioned in the last video, about 8,500 beds across. I don't even know how many villages, maybe upward of 30 or 40 villages, and settlements and camps and homesteads, and, you know, up to cities on this scale.
What is the scale of ArdaCraft again? Like, not necessarily in city, but like between cities?
So 1 to 58, so a 58th of the size of the real Middle Earth, which, you know, the real Middle Earth that we know from the books and the films was about the size of Europe. So obviously we don't want to do that because that would take forever. So yeah, we take it at 58 scale, which is a nice scale. It's like you can walk from place to place, you know, without taking too much time. But to get across the entire map would take you hours to walk. So it's a nice scale where it feels big and imposing and stuff, but it's not like too much work for us to do or too far for people to walk.
Right, and I think critically is you can't see another kingdom from this one. For example, like there's nature around them. I think that's really the
Exactly,
key.
yeah.
Oh, this is cool. A nice little garden. Yeah, that's a nice detail too. I like this. It's a mixture of crops and just sort of weeds and stuff. That's really nice.
Yeah, I mean they would grow, you know, vegetables and stuff in their back gardens. You know, they wouldn't just rely on produce being made outside the city as, you know, as we do in modern times. Everyone would be engaged in at least some kind of food production, you know, in some way. You know, they'd be keeping a couple of goats, maybe some chickens, you know, all that kind of thing, and growing vegetables.
Yeah, this is great. I love how organically the roads flow as well. Like they're not straight ever, and I think that's really cool too. So that was all planned. That was all planned before you even built the terrain, right? Like you built sort of the direction the roads are going to be and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, initially in World Painter, when I make the terrain, I planned out, you know, this hill, and I said, right, Edoras is going to be about this big, and the hill's going to cover about this much area. But you know, when people go in, they then plan out the roads on it, you know, in a way that makes sense, and plan out all the different builds and stuff. So yeah, again, this is one of the slightly richer halls, you know, but again, still fairly cramped feeling in it. It's the kind of way it would be, really.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, you know, the people didn't have much of a conception of private or personal space in the way that we do these days. So.
These are great. These are very cool houses. I'd like to build some of these someday in my own world with like the fire pits on the inside. They're really cool. It'd be fun to build some of these.
Yeah, and not hard to build either. Like this is not a difficult style to kind of wrap your head around. You know, the long haul design is quite simple, really. So.
It's an interesting thing, you know, whenever you're building in survival in particular, but in any way in Minecraft, whenever you're doing any kind of solo project, you know. Like it's, you know, you look at people's kingdoms like, oh, it's a huge kingdom, and you look and there's like 12 houses, you know, and that's very common, you know, and you need a way more than that. So I think you have to find tricks of building. I don't want to call them simple, but you know, simple-ish sort of houses, so you can just build a bulk of them. You know, whether you're in survival or creative. I mean, if you're building, you know, 300 houses in this kingdom, you can't make each one the Taj Mahal, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to find that balance between, like, you know, making it not too difficult to build, but also making it look good. And I think, you know, Rohan kind of strikes that quite nicely, where there's a lot of detail and stuff, but the actual design of the houses, you know, aren't too complicated.
You know, it does. And another thing that you did that we talked about last episode too, you can take a very simple house. Like let's look at this house just for a second. This is simple. This is really simple. I mean, there's nothing. I mean, it looks great, of course, but it's very simple. But it's not straight, you know? And all of a sudden, it not being straight makes it look very, like, I hate to say, you know, super complex, but it makes it look pretty darn complex. And it's not really, it's just angled. That's a really cool tip to try in your own world, is just slightly angle a house, and all of a sudden it looks like a very detailed thing, even though this house isn't that detailed, really.
Yeah. And that's actually really an important thing for diagonal builds, is I think a lot of people try to make diagonal builds like overly complex, and so the eye just gets lost in all the detail you're trying to add. Whereas if you have quite a simple design and you make a diagonal, you can still understand implicitly like what's going on with the build and what it is. You don't have to think too hard, or like, oh right, this is diagonal, and kind of, do you know what I mean? There's often that problem with diagonal builds, that there's too much going on. You have to make it simple, or else it just doesn't work.
Well, I think that's the nature of Minecraft. Like, if you have a big flat wall, you have to detail it quite a bit to get it to not just look like a big flat wall. But in a diagonal build, the shape of it does about half of it for you. So I think you need to do maybe half of the detailing. So yeah, it's a really valid point.
So now we're getting up into the richer areas, the more noble areas of the city. This is kind of where the sort of nobility of Rohan, a lot of them would live. So, you know, it's funny to call them nobility. When you think of nobility, you think of, you know, castles and palaces and all that kind of thing. But you come into here, and this, you know, this would be a richer house in this culture, but it's still pretty, pretty cramped by our standards.
It kind of reminds me. I just recently started rewatching Game of Thrones. We just got HBO Max here in my household, so I thought, oh, let's just go back and watch watching the Dothraki and stuff. And it's a king, even though they don't actually even have a place. They're just sort of nomadic and they ride horses and stuff. It kind of reminds me a little bit of that, or maybe that reminds me of this, or one way or the other.
Yeah, exactly. And the conception of wealth and the conception of who is a king or what nobility is, of course, have changed hugely over time. I mean, if you look in this house, this is again quite wealthy, because look, they've got a lot of tapestries, they've got a lot of color in here. They're able to afford, paint on the walls and stuff that, the poorer people would be able to. And you've got these kind of carved beams and all this stuff going on that it's artistry that you don't get in the poorer areas.
Yeah, but they still all live in like one big room, and
Exactly.
Yeah, that's super cool. Oh, what's that big building?
So that big building is Medeselv. That is the royal house of Ryan. So if we'll go back out of this courtyard this way,
okay.
And come up to it. So yeah, this is the kind of centerpiece of the city in a way. It is the most important building in Rohan, politically speaking, culturally speaking. It really is the center of the kingdom, and plays a very significant role in the story. So yeah, it's pretty imposing.
It's very fancy. Wow, this is such a cool idea. Even before we even go in there, you're calling it a city, and it clearly, obviously, it is a city, but like, this is not what you imagine when you think medieval city. Generally, I'm saying you, like the normal person, right? You imagine stone European streets and big stone built. In my mind, at least, I shouldn't say you. I imagine that, and to see a city built out of primarily like dirt and thatch and all that kind of stuff is such a different concept, and it is a really, really welcome one. It sort of reframes my mind, and it's like, yeah, this is a city too. It's just different than what maybe traditionally you might imagine. It's very, very cool.
Yeah, it's based mostly upon kind of early Middle Ages, so kind of after the fall of Rome, but before the kind of era that you're thinking of, into the high and late Middle Ages, going into the Renaissance, where things became more complex and more was built out of stone, and architecture kind of became complex again. But this is really kind of early Middle Ages, maybe from 500 to 1000 AD, the time of the Vikings, the time of the Norsemen, the Anglo-Saxons, the Franks and the Goths, and all these people. I mean, this is the kind of architecture that would have been familiar to them.
But it you have parts of this world that are sort of based on later medieval times, right?
Yes and no. So it's a bit of a weird one. So you have the Shire, for example, which is kind of its own unique thing, because it's based Tolkien's recollections of the Shire are all based upon his kind of childhood in England in the 19th century. So there's elements of 19th century English architecture in Shire, which is very weird when you have a world that's also got early medieval builds in it as well. Right. So it's kind of this weird mix of all sorts of stuff going on. And then when we come to Gondor, we'll be drawing from really ancient cultures like Egypt and Crete and ancient Greece and Mesopotamia and all these different cultures, and then going up to Rome as well. So Roman architecture. So there's a whole mix of different cultures and styles in this world, which makes it a very interesting world to build. I think it makes it unique. But yeah, let's go inside Medeselv and have a look.
Wow, this is cool. Wow, this is imposing, man.
Yeah, instantly as soon as you come in, right, there's that sense of scale and grandeur, and you can tell this is, even if you knew nothing about the lore, about the history of this place, you would know immediately that this is like the most important place in the kingdom.
Yeah, this is super cool. Wow, really nice. Man, I as a primarily vanilla player, I'm always very jealous of your like vertical slabs and all the stuff that Conquest Reforged has, like these little poles, and yeah, it'd be really nice. Have you guys ever considered adding like chisel and bits or something to get even more sort of customized?
That's actually, so it's a thing, isn't it? With us personally, people have used chiseling bits with Conquest Reforged, but from our perspective, we have such a vast world to build. If we start adding in more and more detail, to individual stuff, progress would just grind to a halt, right? So you have to like draw a line somewhere. I think at the moment we've got a nice balance between like it still feels like Minecraft, but there's that extra level of detail. Where chiseling bits kind of almost blows it out the window, and it's like a different game. So there's that balance you have to draw.
Yeah, for sure. You could spend, you could get on and play and build either a house here, or you could spend the entire afternoon trying to build a flower vase or something with chiseling bits. Yeah.
Exactly. So,
this is great.
Metacell is really cool. And if you look around on the walls, you make very heavy use of these custom paintings, these tapestries that show different events and people from across the history of Rohan. They're all over the place in here. You
have lots and lots of paintings, right? Like many more than vanilla permits?
Yeah, way more than vanilla. Okay. Yeah, like 10 times more than what vanilla runs.
That I have a feeling in vanilla that may get opened up, since they I don't know if they separated currently they separated the paintings into separate files. I kind of have a feeling now that that's done, that doesn't seem like there should be a cap on how many you can have. So it might be coming.
It would be useful, wouldn't it? It adds so much to a build.
Man, it would be amazing if you could add, because, like, for example, in my single player world, it's mostly a medieval city, but also, just for fun, the end is a moon base. So what I would like to do is have some paintings that show like computer screens and stuff, but I can't give up any of them for the medieval thing because obviously, you don't have enough. So yeah, it would be really nice. Oh, this is
great. So I mean, this is kind of the other end of the city, but I mean, it's hard to get a sense of the scale. Again, you have to fly up and really look at just how many buildings there are here. There are about 1,000 beds in Edoras. So
that's really amazing. Well, this is fantastic. Why don't we wrap up this one here, and then we're going to come back with another one. We're doing a series here. So if you have enjoyed the series, leave a like. If you don't mind, leave a comment telling me where else I should check out in this world. And if you want to check it out on your own, all you have to do is go to ArdaCraft.me and you can grab the launcher and you can come check out this wonderful world. It's fantastic. You don't have to be whitelisted. I say this every video because I don't think people believe me. But you can just come on. You can just like log on and walk around and get inspired and then go build amazing things in your own world. Or you can even apply to actually play here, right?
You can, yeah. We have an application process. It's very simple. You just go to our plots world. You build 2 of our current styles, 2 of the things we're currently building, and then you add in a build of your choice, whatever you want to build, just as long as it's creative and interesting. It just shows that you've got a bit of an artistic flair. But I mean, don't worry if you feel like you're not particularly skilled. It's fine. You can improve, and our builders will always help you to improve your builds. So. Yeah, ArdaCraft functions just as much as a kind of place to improve your skills as it does to build Middle Earth. So always welcome.
Super cool. Super. Well, thank you so much for giving me the show run, and we'll see you next time.